My name is Renee Parker. I am a registered clinical counselor, and a bigger role for me actually is that I am a parent. I do private counseling on other days. I work part-time at Family Place, and then part-time at a private clinic, and then part-time doing the Nobody's Perfect groups. And my family structure is a little bit atypical. I fell in love with my childhood sweetheart in high school, and it happened to be a woman. And we ended up we've been together for 31 years now, and one of the things we really wanted to do was have children together. And when we first got together, that was not something that was considered very acceptable. We were hearing about other people who had been married and had children and then realized that this was not working for them, that they were actually underneath a lesbian, breaking up with their partner, and then having their children taken away from them. So we decided not to have children until a lot of the laws changed. So at age 40, a very good friend of ours, a man who was also gay, and his partner wanted children as well. And so we decided to form a 4-parent family. And we decided not to live together. We debated the idea of getting one of those split houses, a duplex or something. And then we decided we would keep it a bit more separate. So we made a legal agreement and arranged that my partner and myself, Susan, would be the legal parents, and that they would be more part-time, more almost uncle-ish kind of figures in the children's lives. And we had one boy 10 years ago, and then we had our second one 7 years ago, and it has worked out really beautifully. So the children live here with Susan and I, and they often go on the weekend to spend time with their dads. And it's been a really amazing thing. Accessing services in Vancouver as a two-mom family has not been as difficult, I think, as if we had had the children back when we thought we would like to. When we had our first son 10 years ago, it was a little bit more challenging. And then when we had our second son 3 years later, in that period of time, I found things changed. When we had our first son, I ended up having a bit of a difficult delivery, and in the hospital they were trying to say that the only person who could visit me for a while was the father. And it was beyond a few people to really easily get the concept that Susan was actually the other parent. And we wished that we'd been able to make it easier for them. But Susan ended up having to be she ended up being, I think, a bit angry and just kind of went, "You got to get this. And we don't have time to explain this to you." And with the second child, that didn't happen at all. With the second child, when we went in there, it was passed around right away. This woman is the other parent. She's allowed to be in the delivery room. Everything was completely cool. We were not ever discriminated against on accessing any services. And I don't know if that's because Susan and I are well-educated people and we know how to advocate for ourselves. But I've heard other people having experiences that aren't as good as ours. Both of my children have a little bit of autism. They're on the mild end of the spectrum. But needing to get services for that and not having people make the assumption that our family was non-traditional and therefore was the cause of their problems, that was a very upsetting thing. But it did not happen very much. Most of the people who were professionals, that were the more higher trained people, most of them were very respectful. I think there still are barriers to LGBTQ families feeling comfortable coming in for services because just of the fear of discrimination. I don't know that there's any physical boundaries or barriers that would stop people, but just the concern about, will I be welcome? Are other people who are in a family place, for example, be accepting of me? If people are not accepting of me, what is the staff reaction going to be like? Am I going to be treated differently? Am I going to have to explain myself over and over again? And it's an exhausting thinking process to go through when you're looking for a service. Is this service going to be worth it to go through that? I would like to see the word diversity somewhere in every setting where families are going. I would like to see that up there. And in the Nobody's Perfect training, they talked about, things like having a poster or something that showed alternative families. And even if it's not an LGBT family, 2 moms or 2 dads, showing a lot of diversity around the center would certainly, I think, make people feel more comfortable. And right at the door, I think not everybody in the LGBT community recognizes a rainbow as being a symbol of acceptance of rainbow families. But I think for a lot of people, if they see that on the door, I know for me, if I see that on the door of any place, a store, a restaurant, anything like that, I feel my tensions subside when I'm going to walk in there with my kids and my partner, or a place where I'm going to ask for services. I know that I don't have to explain anything. So when people say, well, what can I say that's not offensive? It's hard to say because people identify differently. A good way to start is, for instance, I like it when people just say a 2-mom family. That's just stating the fact. That is the fact. We are 2 moms. That's not giving us a label. And then listening for what people want to be called. And you can ask them directly, do you want me, to refer to you as a 2-mom family, or as, when we include the, talking about that kind of family structure, what is the terminology you're comfortable with? And referring to the other person who is the co-parent as the partner, that's a really nice, safe, neutral thing. Another question that we get so often, us women, is, so who's the real mom? And that is almost universally going to be offensive. So it's better to say something along the lines of, are you the birth mother? That's neutral. That's talking about the fact again, the fact of giving birth. That's not talking about status between the 2 mothers at all. Another thing is, don't talk about, well, who is like the man and the woman in the family. That will be offensive to most people. Instead, you can just say, are you the one who is the stay-at-home mom? That's neutral. And so, or do you both work? Are you both breadwinners, kind of thing? That's more neutral. And to have staff, if they suspect that somebody is in a rainbow family, maybe direct them to, wherever you have your pamphlets or something, and say, just very casually, something like, I don't know if this pamphlet would interest you, and to have it be an LGBT directed pamphlet, but along with all of the other ones. So it's very matter of fact. These are all the pamphlets, and I don't know what your family is like, but here's all of them. And so that they know that it is perfectly normal and acceptable to say something to you about it here and to open up to you about it. And if they have any problems, then they know that they can come to a staff person about it. When I was at one center, I actually had somebody say, so did you have the children when you were married to a man? And I said, no, I had these children, deliberately with my partner. And she said, well, why would you do that to kids? And that was a very upsetting thing, like the implication that I was deliberately bringing them into a warped upbringing kind of environment. I haven't heard any parents do that to anybody, but I know that it happened to me, and I'm sure that it does happen sometimes. So if I knew that kind of thing was going on, I would definitely want to step in and address it. I would have to say to them, you know, this place is accepting of all diversity. We want people to have an environment that is safe to be with their children. So we accept absolutely everybody of any family structure. And we're not going to make any kinds of judgments about it. So just like you need support, these people need support, everybody needs support. What I want for my children is to not have any barriers to their education. I want them to get the support they need to get through all the education they need so that they can go forth in the world and have their wonderful, creative ideas come to life. And for people to see their sweetness and their concern for the world. They really have an interesting sense of the world that I think it's really hard for them to communicate. So I want people to be able to listen to them. I want them to be able to share what they have and no barriers to their education.